Hello, everyone. My name is Megan. This is Jen, and this is Jamelyn. So today we are going to be discussing the applications of nanotechnology within dye-sensitized solar cells. So did you know that only 9% of the energy we use is renewable? Finding renewable energy is important because we need some energy source that can power our world once we have used up all our non-renewable resources. So essentially, dye-sensitized solar cells are a piece of nanotechnology that captures the sun's energy and converts it into electricity. So normal solar cells use silica and expensive dyes and other chemicals that capture the sun's energy. The cell we made in our lab was much cheaper because we used transparent conductors and fruit dye made of raspberries. While it was not the most effective solar cell, it's still impressive how we were able to obtain some energy from cheap materials, and with more research, we can find more ways to make these solar cells even more efficient.
So you guys might remember how the other group that did solar cells, their picture depicted a roller coaster that kind of, some of the roller coaster could work, some of it couldn't, but it didn't really depict how the roller carts, the coasters, went around the track and the different steps. But what this image does really well is depicting each individual step. So just in more sciencey terms, the way that the solar cell works is there's a sandwich between the two transparent conductors, and in that sandwich there's iodine, which provides electrons so that the electrons don't run out, and there's also dye, which absorbs sunlight. And when the sunlight is absorbed, it excites the electrons. And because they're excited, they move from the dye to to a layer of titania, which is like a conductive type thing, and through like nanoparticle bridges that it can use to jump between the dye and the titania. So from the titania, it goes to wires, which send the excited electrons back around to the beginning of the solar cell again, making a full, complete circuit or circle. So in this diagram, the first thing that's really clear is that it's a complete circle. So the electrons, which are represented as water in this, can go all the way around and then are brought back and then steam up and then continue the cycle. So it's constantly replenishing. In this image, this big pool of water is the iodine. So it's making sure that the water doesn't run out because it's providing extra water to be used. So from there, the sun in this image is represented by wind power instead. So the wind is powering all of these little wind turbines, which are the dye because they're absorbing the energy. So when you're designing a solar cell, you have to find a balance between current and voltage. Current means there's like a lot more electrons going through, but they're less high powered. So that's represented by these little tiny windmills that are they're getting a little bit of energy, but they're not getting as much as a single big windmill, which is voltage. And so another concept that they represent is when you're using a solar cell, some wavelengths of light work better than others. So like if we had a red dye, we would green light prove the most effective because they're complementary. So here, this is the one that works the best. This amount of wind power, because it sends it right up to this platform. When you have too much wind power, it goes way up high, it misses it. When you have too little wind power, it also misses it. So that represents how the power of the wind is only certain amounts of power work. So from the here, I want to make sure. Okay, so this top platform is representing the titania because it's taking the water, the electrons, and it's transporting it to the beginning of the cycle again, and where the cycle restarts and continuously goes.
Okay. Something that this cartoon could emphasize even more on is the aid of nanoscience, which that where the electrons can find a really quick, direct path between the dye and the titania layers before it loses the energy. and falls back down to an unexcited state. And another concept that we learned about is for controlling the film deposition, where we used, what's it called? Spin coating, which provides a thin layer of titanium, which is made from preventing gunk from intercepting the reaction. Questions?
Okay, I'll start. All right, so up at the top, there's the water gets pumped up, and then there is a wheel. So I have two questions for you. One, what is the wheel, and what does it represent? And then two, I think that the big C is not the iodine. I think something else in the picture is the iodine. And so I'd like you to maybe try to pick something else that you might associate with the iodine.
Okay, I'll give this my best shot. So first of all, with the water wheel, because water wheels are usually like for collecting power, I think that might be representative of how with the circuit, the whole point of getting the solar cell is that we want to generate power or electricity that we can use. So this kind of represents how when at the end of the cycle, what we're producing with the electrons moving is we're producing energy that can be used.
So that's the work that is done as the water goes back down. Mm-hmm. That's the work that the solar cell does. Yeah.
And with the iodine, because it's providing electrons or electrolytes that continue with the cell, then maybe it's the people who are refilling it because it's preventing it from, this small pool. If this continues going without these people to connect it, they're going to run out of water eventually. The pool's going to dry up. So since they're replenishing the pool with more water, then that's probably the iodine.
That's exactly right. The iodine is a shuttle to just bring electrons back from one electrode back to the rest of the system. And they're your little shuttle, shuttling your electrons back. Good job. Now somebody else has to ask a question.
I know you're filming. Do you want to ask a question? Oh. Okay. So that's actually something that could have been represented in this image is when the electrons get excited, some of them get excited enough that they can continue through the cycle and produce electricity, but some of the electrons aren't excited enough that they fall back down, like with the roller coaster, the cars fell off. So here, there could have been like a little bit of water kind of, oh, there actually is, I didn't even notice that. Okay, so there's like water spouts coming down. Those are the electrons that didn't get excited enough, so they fell back down. And when they fall back down to their unexcited state, they release unusable photons of light. So they kind of shine light instead of producing electricity. So that's kind of what makes LED bulbs work, is that they're not getting excited enough, instead they're falling back down and emitting light. Okay, so I'm going to try and remember. I think I got this. So one way that you can make the cell more efficient is if you're able to raise like the metaphorical level of the platform. When it falls down, again, it's going to be releasing more energy. So that's one of the problems with our dye sensitive ones, is that you can't really excite it too much and get very much usable energy back. But with silica, you can kind of excite it to a higher level so that when it falls back down, you release more energy, I think. So
what you're saying is right. So what is the word that we would use to describe the height? What is the thing you measured that is related to the height? Any of you guys? It's not like some weird esoteric thing. It's one of the normal things. Any of you guys? Your team? Just try. And no, this is not like some weird. This is not some weird term. This is like a really common thing. Well, what did you measure about your cell? You didn't.
Voltage?
The voltage. Yep. The height is the voltage. And what's the current?
Current is the number of electrons passing through.
So in this picture, it's
In this picture,
current would be what?
the current are these guys, or no, it's the
Current's it's part of the cycle. So the voltage is how high it is.
voltage is how high it is. Water current is how much water is coming down.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, we got it.